Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into the antagonist for Dungeons and Dragons that we're covering this month. Here in May, we're talking about the Groom, a villain who presents a very heroic nature to everyone around him, but in truth is driven by vengeance as well as bringing oblivion to himself and everything else. He was originally created by a previous antagonist we've talked about, the Relic, and as such, he is a construct of wax. It's poured over a soul cage. This soul cage is his skeleton, and inside is a divine spark that has been extinguished. Because of his charismatic nature and kind of brooding mien that he has, he attracts many people to him, but slowly and surely over time, these people are afflicted by entropy and become a dangerous cult in and of themselves. He is based off of Frankenstein, though his creator is basically the bride of Frankenstein, i.e., the Relic. He covers three horror subtropes, which are scientific horror, body horror, and cosmic horror. I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into how I created this antagonist using the Noctis method, which is name, origin, comparison, traits, inform, and sew up. The name is relatively simple. The creature that created him is the Relic, which is another word for the widow. She's the bride of Frankenstein, and what do brides marry? The groom. That's what she wanted to create, so she made an ideal mate for herself. However, things went terribly wrong, and thus you have the groom, who is still charismatic and attractive, so that kind of breaks that Frankenstein monster trope. Origin-wise, he is a construct, so I need to consider constructs of his challenge rating or constructs in general. What sort of immunities do they have for both conditions and damage? What sort of vulnerabilities, skills, save bonuses, that sort of thing. Because you want to make sure it's consistent so a player's experience whenever they fight or encounter a construct remains consistent. Comparison is the next step, where I take the Groom and I look at other creatures in his CR range, 13, especially legendary creatures, to see how much damage he should be doing, what his armor class should be like in relation to his hit points, especially taking into account that maybe he doesn't have a lot of ranged attacks, which he does. They're spells, but they're not nearly as powerful. So I'm going to look at creatures that are really up in your face melee fighters of challenge rating 13. That's not the only thing I want to compare in this case, because he is the opposite of the Relic. She is fire, he is ice. She is light, he is darkness. She is an evil that seeks to grow her power base and her possessions, whereas he is singularly driven to one task, which is destroy her. And along the way, he doesn't really care about possessions and what he has. In fact, he seeks oblivion and spreads entropy wherever he goes. Next is traits, where I want to emphasize the previous two bits, that he is darkness and cold. So he has eclipse, he can extinguish lights around him, including some magical lights, at least lesser magical ones. And then for cold, he has cold absorption, he deals extra cold damage, he knows some very minor cold spells, and he has Hoarfrost, which is a minor cold AoE around him. When it comes to inform, there's some things I really want to make clear about his character based on the abilities he has. One of those is Icy Smite, because he looks like a paladin, but he acts more like an anti-paladin. So the smite that he has does cold damage instead, but he still has a smite. One of his legendary abilities is Wisp of Oblivion, because he brings entropy and seeks oblivion. It's basically just Misty Step, but the way that it looks as he fades out of reality and fades back in somewhere else, and it kind of gives an eerie feeling whenever he does it, that reinforces that he is a force of entropy and destruction. Next is Sew Up, which is always really important. And why? Because the mechanics have to make sense from a game side of things. His damage has to add up correctly, his hit dice, hit points that he has, all the minutia that makes it a role-playing game must actually make sense, or it takes players out of that immersion as they go, wait a second, he's doing too much damage, or he seems like he has too many hit points, or his spells don't work the way that spells are supposed to work. This is something that I find fledgling dungeon masters miss when they're creating monsters at first, is if something mechanically isn't true, your players, especially if they're experienced ones, are going to know that. They're going to cry foul, and it's going to take them out of the encounters. I hope you enjoyed the Groom as we delved a little bit deeper into him. You'll be able to find him and all his minions, which will start very soon, the Relic as well and all her minions, and hundreds more horror-themed monsters. They're all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. They're all perfectly free at bossofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons role-playing content that I have, or the horror fiction that I write, and you saw this book creeping in right now, it's Grease Paint, it's got a killer clown. Book 2 should be out sometime this summer. Keep an eye out for it. You can always go to www.zacharyoshay.com. As always, I really do appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.